Welcome back to the Center on Buffalo podcast. This week we are joined by the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott. Sean, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Great to see you, buddy, and couldn't be more honored to be on with you.
Yeah, likewise, and truly appreciate the time. I know this is a busy time of year. It's always a busy time of year, though, if you're the head coach of an NFL organization. How does it feel right now to have the guys back in town for workouts?
You know what? It feels great, Eric, and I think the key is that you're watching a group of people come together. We've got a lot of new faces, some new coaches as well, and so it's been interesting to watch these guys get to know one another a little bit, share some life experiences, and just grow.
Are you still competing some in the Iron Bills games? I remember when you came in your first year, we have these Iron Bills games. Eric Ciano, the head strength and conditioning coach, he would kind of put these games together. And then at the time, I believe you guys only competed in the bike sprint where you have to get a certain amount of distance on the bikes. Are you guys still participating in that as coaches?
Well, we've been a little bit more cautious, I guess you would say, with some of our coaches and what we participate in, because there's been a couple scary moments, right, between that year and then year now going in year 8 here. So, yeah, we pick our spots. We also do a full physical medical exam on our coaches to make sure that they're physically fit to participate.
Yeah. What do they say? Like, those that can't do coach, those that can't coach, tape or whatever it is. Yeah. So there you go.
Something like that. But yeah.
All right. When the offseason hits, how much downtime does a head coach in the NFL get?
Boy, it's kind of year to year, and anymore, probably like most businesses out there, it's getting less and less with respect to just the way that coaches contracts are now handled. That kind of becomes a project in the off season, and it kind of lasts longer than it used to and starts earlier than it used to. And that kind of takes up some of the head coach's time off, what used to be. And so I think that's really kind of dependent on who the coach is and what the situation is and how long you play into the postseason. And we've been fortunate to play every year into the postseason, but that pushes things back as well. And so it's all good, and you just adjust, as it comes. And some of it you can handle from maybe a vacation spot, some you can't. It's just kind of a more what's your comfort level.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're recording this the day of the draft. At this point, is the hay in the barn as far as the draft preparation goes, or is it like anything where there's always some work that could be done?
Always, I believe, always some work, right? Always some, hey, let's give it one more go around on a player or a position, or sometimes you get players kind of stacked together in a clump, we call it, and you want to make sure, because it's easy to say, hey, let's just say at position X, we'll be happy with either one of these guys, but the reality of the situation is, this player right here may be a good player and a solid player, but this player right underneath him that's butted up to him may become a Pro Bowler, and to me, that can change the course of an organization's future, really. So you want to get those right.
Yeah, you got to, and you got to hit early in the draft, especially nowadays with the rookie wage scale. They can be so valuable, those rookies that you can bring in, especially if they can play early on. And so Brandon is the GM. He has a team that spends all year looking at prospects. You're the head coach of the team, though, and obviously you have some influence. But how much influence do you have in who the Bills will select in the draft?
Well, you said it. Brandon's our GM, and he has final say in who we pick, and similar with free agency and whatnot. So, yeah, he has final personnel decision-making power. We get involved as a coaching staff. I get involved specifically as a head coach in the process. But at the end of the day, it's Brandon's call. And as you said, I know his staff puts in, really they start in the fall, if not before that. So they should know these players, at a real, intimate level in terms of who they are as people and just kind of what we call the DNA, the makeup of the player. Knowing who the person is just as important as anything. And you can watch the talent on the film, but you can't really get to know the person, and that's a lot of what drives and separates players in the NFL is really what they're made up of.
This will be your 8th draft as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. Do you have any draft day superstitions or something you do each and every time, kind of getting prepped for this big night?
I don't. I really don't. I just try and be a good teammate, supporting teammate, and I know it's gets kind of stressful a little bit during the draft, maybe when you're on the clock or about to get on the clock or trying to do a trade or what have you. And so, it's interesting to watch, right? When you get people in environments like that, how they handle it. And, I know Brandon's done a great job here and, moving at times up in particular most of the time. And, but this is this is their show. And I just try and be a supportive teammate and help wherever and however I can.
Yeah, let's give a quick shout out to Dano's Seasoning, best seasoning in the game. Make sure you try out the new Dano's Taco Seasoning, and the link to purchase that is in the bio. Coach, I want to know, has your philosophy changed on playing rookies? Last year we saw Kincaid and Osiris Torrance start on offense as rookies, and so we've seen rookies sit under your tenure in the Bills with the Bills. Has that changed, or is it just player by player and how it shakes out, through training camp and then leading into the season?
No, great question, Eric. It's always been really no philosophy other than, hey, earn everything you get, right? And so that my job in that is really to say, hey, has the level of trust risen to a point where we can go out there and win with this player while they grow and go through some of the growing pains that you go through as a young player. And it's my responsibility to make sure I'm accountable to the rest of the team in terms of who I put out there with said veteran players, right? So it's never been doesn't want to play a rookie or young players. You have to do that anymore in the modern NFL. And so it's more of, are they able to help us, and have they built up that level of trust that you need to?
How big of a jump can Dalton Kincaid make from year 1 to year 2? We saw some great production, especially in the second half of the season last year. A lot of Bills fans are excited about him heading into year 2. How big of a jump can he make this year?
Well, he had a tremendous year 1, and he's wired. We talk about the makeup of the player, the DNA. He's wired in such a way that really excited to watch him continue to elevate his game. I mean, there are forces in year 2 when you have success in year 1 that want to kind of push you down. The human nature of, let's call it the relaxation syndrome of, hey, I had a good year 1. I know what the NFL is. Well, in reality, you don't, because the NFL is always adjusting, in this case, to a player and what he may bring to the table. So, and the other thing I think is just overall is, how now that there's tape out there on you and people have a chance to study your game, are you able to continue to evolve and grow? Because people adjust, again, and the NFL adjusts, coaches adjust. So that's why it's the best of the best, right? So, but beyond that, I think Dalton's, in terms of who he is, certainly skilled, but also as a person, just as important in this case. He's gonna be primed to have a great season, and that rapport with Josh is going to be critical for us.
Yeah, I love to hear that. Realistically, does the Diggs trade force the Bills to address the wide receiver position early in this draft?
We'll see. Again, we feel confident in the players that we have already in that room. It's going to be a different vibe for sure, just in that room and on our offense, and that's okay. You never replace a player or person like Steph, great player. And, I think the key thing is that we get the right person for the Buffalo Bills. And it's going to take some time for that player to develop, whoever it is at any position. But we're excited about what's in front of us tonight and over the weekend here.
When you look at building this roster, whether it's through the draft or in the offseason, the Chiefs win the last 2 Super Bowls. They've been the class of the AFC for a while now. The Bills have had tremendous regular season success and even against the Chiefs, but then in the playoffs, whether it's been injuries, circumstances, whatever it may be, have not got over the hump. When you're sitting in meetings, when you're looking at who we're going to bring in, is it, okay, we're looking at the Chiefs and the teams in our division, or is it simply, let's build this best roster that we can heading into the season and kind of disregard maybe the Chiefs or the other divisional opponents?
I think the key is to have all those factors in front of you, all those variables, and just say, let's keep these things in mind. And certainly some things are going to be as big as the boulders, and some are going to be more of the pebbles, call it. But you got to be able to say, hey, this is, at the end of the day, this is what we want to be. This is how we want to play. This is what we want our identity to be. And then it goes into, hey, matchups, right? How do we match up against the best? We feel like we're one of the best teams in the NFL, in the AFC. We've shown that. How do we match up against, use the Chiefs and some other teams and say, hey, can we defend what they have? How do they defend us and what we have? And because the NFL, as you know, is a matchup league, and you've got to be able to put enough difference makers out there that create matchup problems. And on the other side of it, you've got to be able to stop their matchup issues. So you're constantly trying to think along those lines.
Yeah, quick shout out to Prime, best sports drink of the game. Check out their new strawberry banana flavor, and you can find that in stores around the globe. This offseason, you move on from veterans, a bunch of guys, Mitch, Trey, Poyer, Hyde, and I've heard you talk about how you have to then develop leaders to kind of step into those roles that those guys have left behind. Do you guys have specific leadership training, or is it something that you kind of just let guys develop into naturally?
Well, if we could just find another Eric Wood, we wouldn't have to train him as far as a leadership class or anything goes. But no, you're always trying to develop the leaders on your team. I mean, it is an important trait of any successful team. I don't care if you're talking about sports or business. You've got to have the right amount of leadership and the right type of leadership on your team. And so, unfortunately, a few years ago, you had to retire, and so who was the new leader to replace you? And so I think that's a great example of some of it happens before we ever thought it would have happened. And so you're always trying to say, hey, if this player goes down, if this player leaves for some reason, who's replacing them? Yes, as a player, but just as importantly as a leader on our team and in our environment here. So there are people in our building, including myself, that work with some of our players to continually develop some of their leadership awareness and skills.
So you lose a lot of veterans, two guys that I'm excited to see play side by side and didn't get to see them play long enough side by side last year was Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano. Do you think that could be the best linebacker duo in the NFL if those guys stay healthy?
Well, I think a lot of it's really coaching. I don't think those guys, really have it's a lot of it. I think you got to credit the coaching more than.
Yeah, you got to give Bobby Babich credit, right?
Yeah, no, those guys are tremendous. They really are. I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I really am, and I think our fan base is as well. It's a shame to see what happened last year to Matt when those two were off to such a great start. And similarly, in this case with TB, as you mentioned with Dalton, and going into, let's just call it his year number 2, even though he's now in year 3, but a second year as a starter, people are going to know his game, and so they're going to adjust as well. And again, similarly, TB, just a tremendous young man, has the it factor from a leadership standpoint at a young age. Certainly he has to develop as well in that regard. But just to watch those two, they're different players. They're both of them very unselfish in their approach and just good football players, but they're different in their own ways, and that's good.
Yeah, Matt Milano's different in a lot of ways, but in a good way. I've loved him since the day he stepped in the building, but he's a different dude. I've heard Shaq Lawson or someone called him Batman. Like, they're like, Matt Milano leaves at night and we think he looks out for the city because we don't see him after he leaves the facility. We have no idea what he does. He's super quiet, but then an absolute beast on the field. How confident are you that Von Miller can regain his form this upcoming season?
It's interesting because in the first season, Von's first season here, two games that really stand out were the first game of the season in the Rams game, and then the Kansas City game, which was whatever, week 6 or so, give or take. And then he got hurt on Thanksgiving, unfortunately. And so last year was last year. It was kind of those, and it's what you expect. It's first year off of an ACL. It's an uphill climb, right? And so now we're into the second year off of the injury. Excited to see what he can do, how he's moving, and how he's going to impact our team. And I think that, quite honestly, is you never count a player or a person like Von Miller out. I know some people would say age and again, the injury, and that's real. But you're talking about a guy also, and this is where the hope comes from, the guy that's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's got an incredible mindset, and he, I think, has something to prove, right? And I think he would say that. So we're excited about seeing how that all flushes out over the course of the next few months.
All right, last one from me. At what point will a decision be made on whether you or Bobby Babbitt are going to be calling the defensive plays this year? I know last year you took over those duties again, and the defense had a lot of success. Bobby gets promoted to defensive coordinator. At what point will a decision be made on who's going to call the plays this year?
You know what, Eric? I think I'm targeting somewhere around training camp. Somewhere in that time, in that window of time of training camp. Probably the back half, somewhere in there. I just want to, there's so many more important things right now than to talk about who's going to be our play caller. Certainly recognize the importance of it, but whether it's the draft this weekend or currently our players being in the building, going into phase 2 next week and growing them and getting them comfortable with our system. Bobby's off to a great start, as I said the other day, and he's a good coach and he puts in a lot of time. He's got great energy, and I love the mindset, right? He's tough, comes from a football family, his dad being a coach, and not only a college coach, but a great NFL coach. And so, I've been enjoying watching him grow. He and I staying in touch on some things, and he's off to a real good start so far.
Yeah, it's been fun to see his rise through just within the Bills organization and then throughout his career. Pretty nice investment on his end to purchase my house when my career ended.
I was just going to add, and yeah, you should thank him for buying your house. So you're always thinking, man. You're always thinking along those lines. So I should learn from you. I should take a page out of your book.
Well, he got a pretty sweet deal on that one. I'll never forget. Bobby sent me a text and he said, I hope this isn't insensitive. And we shared a backyard, but he was in a rental. And he sent me a text. He said, I hope this isn't insensitive, but we have to move out of our rental here very shortly. Can I buy your house off you? And I said, yes, absolutely. I'll get an appraisal. I'll give you 3% off for not having a realtor, and I'll be out in 2 weeks. And he's like, all right, done. And so pretty easy negotiation. But yeah, that paid off for Bobby. He's got his use out of that house, and I'm glad him and his family are enjoying it. Coach, good luck in the draft tonight. The Bills have the 28th overall pick. 15 years ago, they had the 28th overall pick, and yours truly came about from that one. So I'm grateful for the organization. Happy to still be a small part of the organization. Always thank you for your time, and great luck tonight.
Hey, buddy, if we can find someone as good of a person and player as you are, we'll have succeeded tonight at 28. So thanks for having me on, buddy.
Well, I appreciate that. It means a lot.